Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is Keep Your Native Businesses Surviving and Thriving in a Seasonal Economy. Your instructor today is Russ Siegel. He is the Executive Director of the Sequoia Fund Incorporated. My name is Liz Atkins, and I am the Training and Development Coordinator, and I will be your webinar facilitator today. A quick disclaimer before we get started. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concept, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. Also displayed here is our copyright infringement law. This is just a friendly reminder that the webinar presentation materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Before we get started, I want to familiarize you with some of the features available to interact with today's webinar. If you look at the top of your screen, you will see an icon of a hand with a plus sign. By clicking that icon, you can either raise hand, agree, disagree, show pause, show laughter, or even signal requests like asking an instructor to speak louder or slow down, please. Now your screen should look similar to this graphic here. To the bottom left, you will see a pod that says Files. Here you will find any handouts or appendix items included in today's presentation. Please feel free to download a copy for yourself. Just hover over the item if you want to download with your mouse. Then click the arrow pointing downwards to download and save onto your device. Once the item is downloaded, it should appear in your device's download section. If you want to have a copy of today's presentation, my apologies. The second pod to the right labeled web links is where you will find our survey about today's webinar, along with the link to receive our weekly newsletter, connect with the Native Learning Center on LinkedIn, and any other links that will be seen throughout today's presentation. Finally, to the right of the screen, we have a chat pod available. This is how you will communicate with instructor and NLC staff. If you have any questions during the presentation, we welcome you to send them in by using the chat box. Simply type your message into the space that says type here and hit enter or click that up arrow icon button to submit. We do encourage class participation, so please feel free to write in those questions or comments. Tech support issues should also be submitted here. Know that most can be solved by leaving and rejoining the meeting room. Let's all get the chat box going together now by typing in your documentation, where you're joining us from, your tribal affiliation, and your work or role in Indian country. It is now with my pleasure that I introduce Russ Siegel.
Thank you, Awista. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you spending the next hour and a half with me today. We're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart. And in fact, I am coming to you from a hotel room in Roanoke, Virginia, where I'm at a conference, and we're talking about this very thing this week. The Federal Reserve is hosting a meeting, and I have the privilege of attending this. And seasonal economies is very high on the agenda. And a little bit about me. I actually live in a very seasonal economy. Sequoia Fund is based in Cherokee. We're in Cherokee. And Cherokee, if you know anything about Cherokee, North Carolina, we're about an hour west of Asheville. We're in the western pointy tip of the state, and that is in the Great Smoky Mountains. And for decades, it has been a vacation hotspot. It's been a very seasonal economy. And until just a few years ago, we actually had quite a bit of skiing activity in our area. We've got some smaller, certainly not Colorado Rockies level skiing, but we got some smaller ski resorts here, even into North Georgia, just south of us. There was some skiing. Today's weather patterns have not really made for much skiing in the South. But we're going to talk about that a little bit, because we're going to see some patterns that emerged across Western North Carolina, across the South, in some of these seasonal economies that is playing out in other seasonal economies across the country. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and jump in the chat. Let me know where you are. It might give me a little idea of what type of economy you are experiencing, what kind of climate you're experiencing there, because we're gonna run the gamut today, from skiing to rafting to entertainment to you name it. Okay, Black Hills, beautiful area there, Samantha. Yeah, again, very seasonal. You guys are starting, I'm sure, to see an influx of tourists coming in right about now, especially with Memorial Day coming up. Bad River, Wisconsin, excellent. Leech Lake, I know some folks up in the Leech Lake area. Welcome, Brian. Glad to have you. We here in North Carolina are home to what, again, for decades has been a very seasonal economy. And in fact, up until recently, Cherokee, right about the 1st of November, we traditionally would roll up the sidewalks and pack everything away until about Easter. There was just not a lot going on in the wintertime. We had a lot of restaurants and hotels that closed, and we still do have a few of those, but they're fewer and fewer. More of our hotels and restaurants are staying open year round, thanks in large part to our casino. When our casino really hit its stride and started to grow, that just brought a lot of people to the area year round, and people realized that the casino could not be the only thing open in January and February. That we had to have some other things going on, and but around us again, we had some skiing. We have a little company just west of Cherokee in the Nantahala Gorge. Is called Nantahala Outdoor Center, or NOC. The Nantahala Outdoor Center for years was one of the largest, and still is one of the largest, river rafting companies in the country. Now, this little wide spot in the road as you go through this river gorge between a couple of slabs of granite, in the off season, they might have 30 employees, but during rafting season, that one company swells to over 600 employees. So rafting is huge, and with that, they were able to spawn other rafting companies. They spawned some competition, and so several companies popped up over the last couple of decades to compete with them. And while it is still very seasonal, that's one of the things about a seasonal economy is if you do really well in a seasonal economy and you run a seasonal business, you're going to catch the attention of other people who want to do business the way you're doing business and want to capture some of those customers that you have. So we are very heavily invested in the tourist industry. We as a native CDFI, we fund hotel renovations. We fund pool decks and remodels and restaurant remodels and everything from widening the stalls and the doors of bathrooms to repairing the HVAC system on a fudge shop that's only open 6 months out of the year. So we see a little bit of everything here, and I'm gonna maybe hopefully coin a term today with you. It's something that we've witnessed for years and years, but I don't know that anybody's ever called it anything. So I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try my hand at coining a new term today, and if you log off, I'll know that you hated it. So OISTA, if people start to disappear, we'll know that just didn't work. But anyway, we're gonna jump right in, and we're going to talk about the characteristics of a seasonal economy. What are the things you should be aware of? What makes a seasonal economy so great? A lot of people think, well, I've only got a part of the year to make my money. Well, that's not such a bad thing, actually. What are some financial strategies for seasonal businesses? So whether you run a seasonal business or whether you're involved in helping seasonal businesses, and I see that Joy is from Southeast Alaska, involved in tourism attractions. Yes, if you're working with or if you're providing technical assistance to seasonal businesses, helping them with their cash flow and their financial strategies is extremely important. We'll talk about personnel management issues, and that really tends to be the giant killer. If you are a small business and you can manage personnel better than anybody else, a lot of times you can capture business in a seasonal economy that other people cannot. We'll talk about scheduling and operations optimization, how to make things work in a short amount of time. Inventory management best practices. And I hope there are no Christmas shop folks in here, but if anybody runs a Christmas shop, I might step on some toes. I apologize for that. But if no one in the webinar is in the Christmas business, you might know someone who is. And I think it's a pretty easy target to pick on when we start talking about inventory management. So that's a pretty good example we're going to use. And I'm going to talk about some marketing and promotion strategies. A lot of people think that seasonal economies are like light switches. You just turn it on during the season, you turn it off in the off season. That's not necessarily the case. We need to have a strategy that carries you through the off season as well. And talk about how to enhance the customer experience. Again, this goes along with the personnel management issues. This is your giant killer. I mean, if you're going to be Jack in the Beanstalk, this is the thing that cuts down the beanstalk. You're really going to take down some big heavy hitters if you can do better than they can in terms of managing people and giving customers a great experience. And finally, diversification and some innovation opportunities. We'll talk about a few things toward the end also that maybe didn't hit this this index, this table of contents, so to speak, but we're going to make sure that we kind of cover everything from soup to nuts as it pertains to seasonal economies and seasonal businesses. So what are the characteristics of a seasonal economy? Well, we've got some seasonal fluctuations that, again, people sometimes think, well, I've only got part of the year to make my bills. I've only got part of the year to make my profit. That's not necessarily a bad thing. When we have a seasonal economy, we have some benefits there that we can take advantage of and should be taking advantage of. One of the things about seasonal fluctuation is it makes it pretty easy to forecast because we have a compressed time frame in which to do business. We have some distinct peak and off-peak seasons. And so we've got these highs and lows in demand. And during the quieter period, it's really easy to start looking at when things happen. If we had a year-round economy, we might find multiple peaks and valleys in our activity, and sometimes that becomes a little harder to forecast. But if we have, and again, I'm going to use North Carolina because this is where I live. This is my home, and this is what I know. We know that in the fall, we're going to get a lot of people coming to the mountains to see the leaves, maybe to see some elk calves, things like that. They're coming for some very specific reasons. And we know when kids are out of school. So it's pretty easy for us to start forecasting based on school schedules and weather patterns and things that happen every single year. We can count on those. We depend on the tourists. We are extremely heavy. And in fact, the Qualla boundary straddles two counties in North Carolina. It straddles Jackson County and Swain County. And if you know anything about North Carolina, we are west of Asheville, and Asheville usually gets all the spotlight when it comes to tourism in North Carolina. It always makes the lists of best places to visit, best places to move to, and best places to eat and so forth, vacation, you name it. But west of Asheville, we are the second largest tourist economy in Western North Carolina. And we're one of the smallest in terms of population, but in terms of tourism spending, hey, that's something we can count on year after year, and even in the bad years. So let me put your mind at ease here. If you're thinking that the economy affects tourism, let's talk a little bit about this. We did have this dip. If you look at COVID, tourism dropped off the map because nobody was leaving home. Nobody was leaving town. And people thought, this is all we'll ever have. We're going to be on Zoom forever. If I ever want to see the mountains, if I ever want to see the ocean, I guess I'm going to go to the beach on my 14-inch laptop screen. This is as close as I'll ever get again. And that was not the case. As soon as travel restrictions were lifted, things exploded. People were ready to get out of their house. They went to the Black Hills. They went to the national parks. And in fact, the entire landscape of national parks and how they're operated changed after COVID because so many people started doing what we call domestic tourism. They weren't going overseas. They weren't going to Japan. They weren't going to Scotland. They were staying here in the United States and saying, I can get in my car and I can travel and I can see this big country of ours. So what can I see? Well, they started hitting the national parks, and boy, did they hit our national park as well. In fact, we are right in the middle of the most visited national park in the country, the Great Smokies National Park. Part of that is because one of our major roads is a thoroughfare between North Carolina and Tennessee. We're going to ignore that for a minute. We're going to just say everybody's here to see the beautiful things that we have to offer in our area. But we know three things about human nature when the economy gets tough. One of those is that people want to eat well. They will save up their money to go out to dinner. They want to look good, which is why people will still pay money for mani-pedis and getting their hair done and makeup and nice haircut, things like that. People want to eat well, they want to look good, and they want to be entertained. If we look at the Great Depression, in the middle of the Great Depression, the number one growth industry was the radio industry. The second was the radio advertising industry because people wanted to be entertained. They wanted an escape. So if you've been stuck in an office, you're looking forward to that vacation. You want to travel. Also, nowadays, if you work from home and you've been stuck in your home office looking at that same wall, you're ready for a vacation. So travel trends are not going to deteriorate anytime soon. In fact, even as the economy fluctuates, and sometimes even when it gets worse, we see more travel. And what we see in travel patterns is a little bit different, but we see people traveling. Tourism economies, for seasonal economies, sometimes we see what we call staycations. You may have had one of these recently. Instead of getting on a plane and flying 17 hours away, you're going to get in a car and you might drive up to 7 hours away. You might say, okay, where can we go? We can load the kids up in the morning. Where can we be by dinner time? What does that circle look like? Where can we go inside that radius? And that's the kind of things people are looking for. They want to explore closer to home. Now, a lot of what we see in a seasonal economy depends on the weather. Weather is going to severely impact how people travel, what they do, and of course, if you're going 3 towns over to a festival, to a powwow, to something that's going to be outdoors, you're going to be watching the weather pretty closely. And you may get there thinking it's going to be a sunny day, and then it rains you out. We just had a Bigfoot festival in a town near us, and they usually draw into the tens of thousands of people, and it was a great event until about halfway through the day, and it got soaked, and everybody left. You just never know what's going to happen, but that's one of those things that you just have to deal with. With seasonal fluctuations, there are going to be variability in revenue and cash flow, and that's one of the things we're going to dig into a little bit deeper here in a moment. You're going to have temporary workforce adjustments. You can have people who are only available during the summer. Maybe you're hiring high school kids. Maybe you're hiring college students who are home for the summer or for the winter season. You're going to have increased competition, just like I told you with the Nantahala Outdoor Center. If you do really well, you're going to invite competition. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That shows that you're doing something right. And sometimes a rising tide raises all boats. Having more competition brings more customers. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. You're going to have some challenges with inventory management. Again, we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper, but you're going to have a severe impact on your local communities. One of the things that we start to look at as business owners and as a native CDFI is not just how can we help these businesses deal with a seasonal influx of tourists, but how can we work with Cherokee? How can we help kind of stabilize that infrastructure? Because for several months out of the year, you've got water, sewer, electric, broadband, all kinds of infrastructure becomes stressed. And you might find that there needs to be upgrades made to the municipal infrastructure before you're able to really bring in the kind of tourism dollars that everybody would like to have. Um, so what's the importance of adapting our business strategy to capitalize on these seasonal trends? Well, we know that the tourists are coming and we can't stop them. We can slow them down, and that would be a good problem to have. Bali, Indonesia, Fiji. There's some places around the world that Thailand, places that have become over touristed. That's not the word I want to coin. That's actually a term. They've become over touristed. And these tourists that flood in because they saw something on Instagram or they saw something in a magazine and they said, this is where I want to go. A lot of these places are starting to implement tourism fees. Amsterdam is getting ready to do that. Trevi Fountain in Rome, just to get up close, because if you look at a beautiful photo of Trevi Fountain, you're going to say, oh, that's really what I want to see. But the reality is, when you get there, you're not going to see the fountain or the hordes of people around it. So Rome has started to look at some of their tourism attractions across Italy as well. The Tower of Pisa is starting to implement fees. If you want to look at it from afar, that's free. You want to get up close and do that silly, hey, I'm holding up the Tower of Pisa photo. That's going to cost you some money nowadays. So I think here in the U.S., we're going to see places that are starting to get over touristed. They're getting overrun with people. They're going to start to find ways to charge extra fees for these tourists. We're starting to see that in some of the national parks. We're starting to see some of the national parks. You can't just drive into them. You have to have a reservation. And so that's coming. That's going to happen. But we have to, as businesses, we have to get ready, not just for the influx of tourists, but we have to get ready for what is our tribe going to do? What is our county? What is the state going to do? What kind of restrictions are going to be put on people? What kind of changes do we have to make to our business to deal with what's going on around us? And how do we manage all of that? This is not something that year-round businesses have to deal with. Your typical McDonald's on an interstate overpass, an interstate exit is probably not going to have to deal with this. But a McDonald's in a tourist town will have to deal with this. A hotel that is on Interstate 40, somewhere out in the Midwest, is probably not going to have to deal with this. But when you get closer to a tourist town, they're going to have to adopt some strategies to figure out how to deal with seasonal trends. So again, dealing with the financial strategies for seasonal businesses is sometimes easier simply because we have a very compressed time frame in which to examine. But we also have a lot of data within that small amount of time, which makes it easier to forecast. Okay. We can utilize historical data. We can utilize market trends, and we can forecast revenue and expenses for each season. So you might have, and again, in Cherokee, we have a seasonal economy, but it's not just one season. In the spring, people come for a very different reason than they come in the fall. And we can look at things like, how long do people stay? If they come in the spring, are they just coming in for the day? If they come in the summer, maybe they're staying for a week. If they come in the fall, maybe they're staying for a weekend or a long weekend because they want to see the leaves and they want to hit it at peak time. Now, that's just a guess. And you're going to have all kinds of forecasts of when the leaves have peak color, right? But you're going to have people who say, I want to time this right. I've got to get the kids are out of school. We're going to go see those leaves. And we can almost predict what weekend that's going to be, whether the leaves want them there or not, whether the leaves are ready for them or not. We can almost predict exactly what weekend is going to be the top weekend or 2 weekends in the fall season. We also have the ability to do what's called flexible budgeting. Flexible budgets can accommodate some fluctuations in revenue and expenses because as we've seen seasonal economies begin to expand, there was a time when, again, Cherokee was 8 months out of the year. Then it became 9 months out of the year. Now it's closer to 12 months out of the year. So we've had to start figuring out, some of these hotels. We had hotels, and we still have hotels that make one payment a year. They make one payment a year in November because they know that from April or from late March through October is going to be their season. Now they may still be open in the wintertime, but they're gonna have all the money they need to make their debt payment in November. So we can help them with some flexible budgeting to make sure that they've got a little bit of flex in case we have a rainy season or something goes wrong. But we can also make seasonal adjustments. Let's say it stays hot through November. If the weather is forecast to be warm early, maybe our winter is going to be mild. What is it? If Punxsutawney Phil, the groundhog, sees his shadow, it means we're going to have an early summer. I can't remember. Maybe it's the other way around. But whatever that groundhog tells us, we start making adjustments for when are the tourists going to start showing up, and we can start allocating our budget a little earlier. Maybe we allocate our budget a little bit later, depending on the season. This is going to sound morbid, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong ways. I know some of you are. I know Awista's in Florida, but when there are hurricanes forecast for Florida, depending on the path of that hurricane, it can be very good economically for us here in North Carolina because people start to migrate north to avoid that hurricane. They're going to come up here late in the season, September, October, when they normally wouldn't be taking a vacation. They're evacuating, but they're going to come up here and they're going to stay in the hotels. They're going to eat in the restaurants. And we have to help our seasonal businesses get ready for that because that's not something that happens every year. That's part of the contingency planning that we can do when we're budgeting for seasonal variations. We plan for not only what the worst possible outcome could be, what happens if it rains all summer and we don't have any business. We also have to make a contingency plan for what happens if it turns out much better than we ever thought. Maybe we need to spend a little bit more money on repairs and maintenance, spend a little bit more money on inventory, spend a little bit more money on staffing, because now we're not going to be able to let our staff go at the end, the quote unquote end of the season. We have to keep them on. The next thing that we can think about in terms of financial strategies is building financial reserves. Again, we have businesses that make us one payment a year, but they also set aside reserves during that peak season so that they can keep other bills paid in the wintertime. They're paying their credit card bills. They're still making their car payment. There are probably not a lot of banks and finance companies that will make you a 9-month loan on a bank, on a car. They want their money year round. So we have to help these businesses establish some reserves, set aside a portion of that profit during peak season so they can build those financial reserves and tap into them when things slow down. We can talk about setting up an emergency fund with our businesses. Now, this is a tough ask because, look, if there's one thing we know about entrepreneurs is there's never going to be an emergency, all right? The other thing we know is they're never going to die, so that's why they don't buy life insurance. But there's never going to be an emergency. Why bother planning for that? Well, truth is, there are emergencies. And convincing folks to set aside an emergency fund is really tough when there are pressing financial needs right in front of us. If I take this $100, put it in an emergency fund, I can't spend it on fixing this deck railing out in front of the restaurant. Okay, well, now we got to figure out a way to do both. But that deck railing may need to be fixed because it's a safety issue, but you still need to park that $100 in the emergency fund. One of the issues that we talk about in our seasonal economy here is a reinvestment strategy. Very often we see businesses that they're so buried in work during the season that all they want to do is relax and breathe when things slow down. But that's really the time of the year when they need to start allocating a portion of their profits towards some long-term investments. Maybe that bathroom or the restrooms in that business, they're a little long in the tooth. Let's fix that up. Maybe you have signage that needs to be refurbished. We've just had a couple of motels in Cherokee that refurbished old historic neon signs, and they're absolutely gorgeous. It took them forever to do that because they just let them get almost past the point of no return. So if you can set aside some money to reinvest in keeping up your business, that's really important. And then again, debt management. Do you want to negotiate with your creditors so that you only make payments monthly during the season, or that you make one balloon payment at the end of each season? Or do you want to go with what we call a hybrid schedule, where you're making bigger payments when you have the money and you're making smaller, what are called maintenance payments in the off season, just to keep paying something and make sure you're whittling down that principal balance? Those are things to consider when you think about building your financial reserves versus the need to manage your debt. And then finally here, exploring diversified revenue streams to supplement income. Okay, product diversification. If you have a Christmas shop, we know that Christmas is your big season. You're going to sell ornaments and cards and all kinds of decorations throughout the year, but there's going to be a real big push leading right up to Christmas. Are you also going to become a Halloween store? Are you also going to sell Easter merchandise? Are you also going to sell other seasonal, quote unquote, seasonal merchandise? And I'm just kind of using these as examples. Probably not, because then you wouldn't be known as a Christmas store, because that kind of boxes you in. However, this is where we're going to coin a term here. We have ski resorts here in North Carolina that in the off season, when there's no snow on the ground, they mow these ski runs and they become fairways for golf courses. We have a couple of those here in Western North Carolina, where in the summertime it is a golf course, in the wintertime it is a ski resort. But all across seasonal economies, especially in small rural tourist towns, we have this concept of wintertainment, where in the winter you have ski bunnies who are ski instructors, they're snow patrol, they're sizing people for ski boots. They're working in the ski resorts in the winter, and in the summer they take off their ski boots, they go to the other side of town, and they work in the theme park, or they work at a local attraction. Maybe they're singing and dancing, maybe they're waiting tables, maybe they're cooking, maybe they're doing something else. But they, this idea of wintertainers who stay in a place because they love the place, and the place is really what drives them. It's what draws them in, and so they're working two different industries, two different careers that overlap. And over time, a lot of these folks are able to work it out so that if one season runs a little bit long, they still have a job. If one season's cut a little bit short, they can jump to another job, and so forth. So it's not just product diversification. Sometimes it's people diversification. Sometimes it's helping your employees expand their skills so that they can stay in the place where they love. But again, I'm not suggesting that if you own a ski resort that you also build a golf course. That's a great way to lose money, by the way. But there are ways that we can say, okay, how can we use this underutilized capacity in our building? If you have a business that is it's a restaurant, but you're only open 9 months out of the year, you have a lot of restaurant equipment sitting there idle for 3 months out of the year. Could you become a commissary kitchen for food trucks? Is there some way that you could rent out your kitchen for people who make their own salsas or they make jams and jellies? Is there some way that you could rent out that kitchen to provide another service? That gives you some of that diversification that we're talking about. Let's talk about cross-selling and upselling. We have a lot of businesses just across the mountain from us over in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And what they do is the coffee shop will sell you tickets to the local country music show. The country music show will have tickets that you can use for golf or discounts on your hotel. And they form these partnerships, some informal, some formal, where I'm going to scratch your back and you're going to scratch mine. And together we're going to work to keep people here one more night, eat in the restaurant one more time, go to one more show. And that's how economies are built in a seasonal economy. It's not that we want to drive people here and keep them all week. Sometimes they're coming. We just want to convince them to be here one more night. Maybe we schedule an evening activity. Here in Cherokee, we have bonfires. We have the outdoor drama under these hills. We have a lot of things where you can't check out of your hotel at 11 o'clock. If you want to go to a 7 o'clock or an 8 o'clock show, you're going to have to stay one more night. So this is, again, a way that we help drive that economy forward. Seasonal events and promotions. I just talked about a couple of those. We have the outdoor drama that only operates during the summer. But we also have a lot of outdoor events this year. We're hosting the first Cherokee Scaroween event. It's going to be a 2-weekend event. And it's targeting people who come and bring their kids and stay in the hotels. They're going to get a heavy dose of Cherokee myth and lore and tradition. And Sequoia Fund is actually writing and producing a murder mystery event for folks. So a lot of those things we want our seasonal economy to be more than just, hey, come to the casino. We have a river. We have a lot of hiking trails. We have horseback riding trails. We have a lot of reasons for people to come here, but we have to promote those, which means that we have to form partnerships and collaborations. We have to be talking with each other. We have to be talking with our tribal economic development. And we, by all means, if you run a business or if you help small businesses in your area, don't leave everything up to your travel and or your travel and promotions department or your tribal marketing department. We have tribal marketing, we have travel and promotions, travel and tourism. We have a lot of different things that are geared toward. But if we don't get our businesses involved, if we don't make sure that those restaurants are staying open when people want to eat, that the hotels are offering things like early check-in or maybe not early check-in, but we'll hold your bags. If you get here at 8 o'clock in the morning, you check your bags in. We're going to hang on to your bags and let you go enjoy your day. And then the room will be ready whenever you're ready to check in. If we don't start doing some things like that, then customers are going to find another place to go and enjoy and spend their money. So don't leave everything up to your tribe to handle that. This is going to take some private industry gumshoe work, really, just to get everybody on board. And then, of course, let's not forget about e-commerce and online sales. We have a lot of businesses, and I'm going to pick on those Christmas shops again. How many times have you ever gone to buy a Christmas ornament and you see something else you like? You get home and you say, "Why didn't I buy that? I want to go online and buy that." It's not even available. So we're really working with stores here in Cherokee to give them an online component. We've been doing this for about the last 15 years. Just to let people know that they don't have to be in front of you to buy this. And in fact, they may want it. They may decide in the moment to not buy it. But if they get home and they want it, how are they going to get it? We have an art co-op here. It's the oldest native art co-op in the country. It's 70, I can't remember if it's 76 or 77 years old this year. They have a wonderful website. You can see a lot of different genuine, authentic Cherokee art on the website, but you can't buy anything on it because they've never wanted to sell anything on the website. But just because people come, spend their money, and then they leave doesn't mean they're over us. They may want to reconnect with us, and they're going to do that through social media, and they're going to do that online. So in a seasonal economy, we've got to watch our cash. Cash is king, and we have to watch it very closely. Because in the good times, if we start treating a seasonal business like a year-round business, we can burn through cash that we're going to need in those off months. So it's the beauty of this type of economy where you can look at historical analysis. When have things gotten slow periodically? Now, I'm not an expert on this. I do love Chat GPT. I love everything AI. I'm completely fascinated by it. I'm ready for the future that Star Trek has promised us. But you can take this data that you have year over year. You can start feeding it into Chat GPT. You can build a spreadsheet of your daily and weekly sales year after year, and you can load all of that into Chat GPT, and it can help you start forecasting when you're going to see cash peaks and valleys. Now, customer peaks and valleys are going to be different. What we care about is the cash peak and the cash valley. So you can analyze these trends, these patterns, and see when do you need to hang on to extra cash and when do you need to make those seasonal adjustments. Now, if you had a slow season last year because the weather was bad and customers canceled their trips and tourists just didn't show up, that could give you some cold feet. Are you going to base this season's forecast on what happened last season if it was a one-off, or are you starting to see patterns where things are changing? And we don't have to use Chat GPT to evaluate patterns. Yogi Berra, famous baseball player and coach, one of the great catchers of all time, he said, you can see a lot by looking around. And if you're just looking around, look at your neighboring towns, look at neighboring areas, regions. Are they starting to do things that are attracting the customers who traditionally came to visit you? Are people moving in different directions? Are they going over there instead of over here? Those are some of the things that we need to start thinking about, and we need to start planning for different scenarios. We need to develop multiple cash flow scenarios based on these different revenue projections and the market conditions so that we can assess some potential outcomes and get those contingency plans ready. We want to negotiate some favorable payment terms. Hey, look, your friendly neighborhood native CDFI is here to help. Now, Cherokee is our domain. We can only lend in Cherokee. If you do not have a native CDFI near you, you can always reach out to me and I will point you in the right direction. Brian, up there at Leech Lake, you've got one of the all-time great native CDFIs in your backyard. So I always recommend going to see Rob up at Leech Lake Financial Services. He's a fantastic guy. But this is where you want to reach out to whatever lender you have a relationship with. And look, if you have $100 deposit in a savings account in a bank, you have a relationship with them. It may not be marriage worthy, but you can talk to them and they'll listen. So if you have a relationship, start talking to them about the nature of your business in the seasonal economy. There's an old saying that the worst time to look for a lawyer is when you need one. The worst time to look for a lawyer is when you need one. So it applies to bankers, lenders, accountants, everything. Don't wait until you need money. Don't wait until you need some relief. Don't wait until you need loan forbearance or some forgiveness, or you're at risk of defaulting on your loan. Don't wait. Go talk to your lender and talk to them about three things. One is you want extended payment terms. Can you align your payment schedule with your revenue cycles? Can you improve your cash flow that way? If you talk to them about setting up different payment schedules, maybe realigning your payment schedule before you need to do that, they're going to be much more open to helping you out. The second thing we want to talk about is early payment discounts. At Sequoia Fund and most of the native CDFIs that I've talked to, we don't have prepayment or early payment penalties. But maybe if you say, look, I had a really good season, I want to go ahead and pay this off. Would you be willing to give me a discount on some of the interest if I just go ahead and pay this off early? They may be willing to do that. And then the third thing is you want to negotiate some flexible financing options to begin with. So if you start looking at borrowing money, work with those lenders to see if they'll be a little bit flexible with you. Maybe you don't need a term loan. Maybe you need a line of credit just to give you a little bit of liquidity when it's a little bit lean. And we've had for years loan clients who've had a line of credit where they live on that line of credit during the off season and they pay that line of credit down during the good times. That's a little bit backward from what I was talking about before, where in the good times, you're setting money aside for those lean times. But here's the main thing. Whether you're using a term loan or you're using a line of credit, match long-term needs with long-term money and match short-term needs with short-term money. What do I mean by that? If you're buying equipment and it's the off season, you're going to be putting in some new equipment. That equipment's going to have a 10, 15, 20, maybe even a 30-year life. You don't want to use your line of credit for that. That's not what your line of credit was built for. You want a term loan because it was built for that type of purchase. By the same token, if you're buying inventory, let's say it's the end of the season, you go to a show and you can buy tons of inventory at a discount and it'll arrive before the season. You're going to go ahead and place those orders now. In 3 months' time, the UPS truck is going to roll up and just drop a truckload of boxes off at your place. You don't want a term loan for those boxes of inventory because you're going to be paying on that term loan for 5 or 10 years, and you're going to sell that inventory on day one. You open the doors for the season, that inventory is gone, yet you're going to owe money on that in years to come. It's not good for your business. So make sure you're lining up your capital with your needs. And we don't do lines of credit. I don't know a lot of native CDFIs that do lines of credit. It's a different animal. It takes a different level of monitoring and management, and we're just not really built for that. And that's why we let banks handle that. But and I'm not going to poo-poo a line of credit. Lines of credit are great if you get one and if you manage it properly. One of our clients went out and got a line of credit, and then he took that line of credit and bought a pickup truck. And the bank said, "Oh no, you can't do that. We want our money back." And they called his entire line of credit. So instead of making a monthly payment on a truck, he owed them about $60,000 in one fell swoop. So it was a bad day for him. So don't misuse that line of credit if you qualify for it. And then last on this list here, utilizing cash flow projections to inform strategic decisions and manage liquidity. Okay. I've talked about flexible budgeting, but I want to talk now about something called dynamic budgeting, where we're going to use our cash flow projections to help us make decisions on staffing, adjusting marketing expenses, inventory purchases, how much cash are we going to have on hand. You're probably familiar with dynamic pricing. Okay. Dynamic pricing, if you've taken an Uber ride or a Lyft, even if you've flown on an airplane lately, they use dynamic pricing. As demand goes up for that particular time of day, or that particular flight, that particular route, the price goes up because they know they can get it. So several years ago, I took my nephew out to Kansas City. He was a big New England fan, and we realized pretty quickly in the game right before that this was going to be a great game. It was going to be between Kansas City and New England. And I said, "You want to go out there and watch this playoff game?" And he was a high school basketball player. It took him a little while to think about it. And when we started thinking about it, when I first made the call, I think flights were about $400 a piece. By the time he changed it, by the time he made up his mind, an hour later, flights were over $700 a piece. And an hour later, they were over $1,200 a piece. That is dynamic pricing. Now, dynamic budgeting says that as things change, you don't wait to take a look at where can you move money around. You are budgeting on the fly. You know that this season is just going to be a bang up season, that you're seeing more customers than you've ever seen. You're taking in more money than you've ever taken in. Okay, start to change your budget now. Be dynamic with it so that in a week, in a month, in a quarter, you're not having to make total readjustments to your operations. You're now saying, okay, we've got the money to do this because we've got more customers. We can go ahead and take care of this expense. Let's just do it. Or because things are worse than we thought, we're going to hold back on this. We budgeted for this expense, but we're going to wait for this for a while. So it goes both ways. But if you think about budgeting as a dynamic event and not or a dynamic process, rather, let's talk about it that way. It's a dynamic process rather than an event that you do once a year. It's going to work out a lot better for you. Monitor your cash flow. You need to implement some sort of system. It can be a manual system. It can be computerized. You can do it on a spreadsheet. Really doesn't matter, but you need to every single day be monitoring your actual cash flow against your projected cash flow and look for variances. If you're starting to see shortfalls, if you're starting to see an excess of cash, maybe you don't want your cash to just sit around. Could you put your cash in a 30-day CD, a 90-day CD, something like that kind of takes it out of your hands so that you can't spend it, but it's working for you. Be looking at those kinds of things. Look at your liquidity. Do you have the money to do what you need to do? Are you maintaining a minimum cash reserve so that even in the worst dip, you still have a comfort zone of cash that you can use and you're not going to be overwhelmed trying to scramble for money? Start looking at your accounts payable cycles. Trust me, in small businesses, everybody wants to pay that bill as soon as it comes in. Walmart does not. Publix does not. Major Kroger does not. They don't pay those bills as soon as they come in. How you pay your bills plays into your cash flow. They pay that bill on the last possible day. And sometimes they'll stretch that. But if you give people 45 days to pay, I'll guarantee you Walmart is taking 45 days to pay. The dirty little secret is your bill is counted as paid on the day it is postmarked at the post office. So you can send it in on the due date if that's what your cash flow demands. And as long as it's postmarked by federal law, they have to credit that bill as being paid on the date it was postmarked. Now at Sequoia Fund, we've got a couple of drop boxes where people can just drop their payments. And we check that box every day. And we'll have people say, well, I don't understand why my payment hasn't been credited. I dropped it in there last week. No, you didn't. You dropped it in today and you dated your check for last week. And that is not the same. It's the postmark date. So again, be monitoring your cash flow, be watching that like a hawk. And then again, where are you going to allocate your capital? As you go through the season, be thinking about those long-term capital allocations. What we're seeing right now, and I think a lot of this is due to COVID, is we're seeing a lot of what we would call deferred maintenance. You might visit a restaurant or a hotel or a retail shop and just say, everything's gone to pot. Everything is just falling apart. Okay, we have a nicer term. We call that deferred maintenance. But we're starting to see, if your HVAC system is acting up, is it going to magically get better on its own? Probably not. So those are the things that we need to start thinking about allocating in terms of the cash flow that we have. Again, I said personnel management could be the giant killer for you. This is the thing that's really going to help you stand above everybody else. Tom Peters, a great author and business guru, he once said, you can be distinct or you can be extinct. And personnel management, this is where you become distinct. Seasonal hiring is not something that needs to be done the day before you open the doors. If you're going to hire people, you need to start looking at what kind of flexibility can you offer? How can you match staffing to any kind of fluctuations in demand? Well, maybe this means you're going to hire more people than you actually need. Maybe if you need 5 people, you're going to hire 8. And that way, if somebody can't work, if somebody can't be there, maybe somebody's got final exams, they can't start on the day that you need them to start because you'd planned for them to start a week later. You've got a little buffer there. But you need to be recruiting and hiring additional staff in the off season. If you have good staff, if you have really good, trustworthy people, let them recruit for you. Go talk to their friends. Have them make a referral. And if they're, give them a bonus. If the person they refer to you turns out to be a good employee and stays with you through the season, maybe tell them, look, if you stay with me, if this other person stays with me through the season, I'll give you $1,000 bonus. Trust me, it's worth $1,000 not to have turnover, not to have to go out and hire somebody in the middle of a season when you're so buried in work you can't even see straight. So use the good people you have now to go get more people just like them. Look for temporary people. There are a lot of job training programs. There are a lot of government-sponsored or government-funded reentry programs. People who have come out of the military, people who've come out of prison, people who've come out of drug rehab, people who are just having a hard time finding a job, maybe reacclimating to civilian life. There are vocational training programs out there. A lot of these programs will pay the wages of the people you hire. Now, there's some strings attached to that. It might be that if this person works for you for 3 months, if they're doing a good job and you have a job available, that you will transition them to a full-time paid position for you, or a similar arrangement. If they're working part-time, you'll transition them to a part-time, but it's going to be on your dime. But there's a lot of opportunity out there to be looking for adjusting your staffing levels using temporary workers. And again, just because these are temporary payment programs doesn't necessarily mean the people are temporary. It's just you've got somebody who's gonna foot the bill to help get those people trained and get them where they need to be. And again, one of those strings, you treat them just like a full-time employee. You treat them just like anybody else on your staff, and you schedule them just like anybody else on your staff. So they get the good, the bad, and the ugly as well as any other employee. And then you need to look for, what kind of contingent workforce do you have? Let's say you just get slammed with business. You need extra bodies. What are you going to do? How do you pull in extra people? Do you have people who have retired? Do you have people who have left but would be willing to come back for a day or two, or take over an emergency shift if someone gets sick? What kind of contingency plans are you making? And I would tell this to anybody, not just seasonal businesses. This is something that we need to be talking about in year-round businesses, is that contingent workforce. Because how many restaurants are we seeing closing right now? How many restaurants are we seeing that are not operating on normal hours because they can't stay fully staffed? They still have the same overhead, their rent, their mortgage, their insurance, their advertising, their snow removal, their lawn care. Those are all not going away. They're just selling fewer burgers to take care of it. So that contingency staffing plan is crucial. We also need to talk about cross-training employees. Employees can learn different skills. They can fill different roles. Just because they're running the cash register doesn't mean they can't also help fit a customer with clothing, or clean a bathroom or stock shelves. We have to wear a lot of different hats as business owners. We can ask the same thing of our business employees. Skill development programs. You don't have to rely on a government-funded program. You can actually create your own skill development program so that you're bringing people in and you're saying, like, you spend this year with me, I'm going to teach you how to do this. By next year, you're going to have all these skills. Richard Branson, founder of Virgin Records, Virgin Mobile, Virgin Atlantic, Virgin this, Virgin that. He says you need to train your people and treat them. He said you train your people as if they're going to leave. In other words, you train them for the next job. Train them for the job that comes next. Train them as if they're going to leave, but treat them as if they never will. In other words, spend the time, spend the money training people, and then treat them well. Even in a seasonal economy, you're going to find people who want to come back to you year after year. Let people rotate jobs. Let people try something different. Don't put them behind the cash register every single day. On Thursdays, you're going to do this. On Fridays, you're going to do that. That way, they've got a little bit of variety in their work, and it makes things much more interesting. You also have a better, well-rounded workforce. And figure out ways to create some team collaboration. Don't just say, well, these people work for me year-round, but this person only works for me in the season, so we're going to treat her a little bit different. No. She has just as much say in decisions and things that happen with the staff as everybody else. That's really going to build some team attitude within your staff. Implementing retention strategies. Again, keeping people today is so much cheaper than replacing people. You need to look around, and there are two different wages. There's the minimum wage, which in a lot of places hasn't changed. It's still the federal minimum wage. Some places like California, fast food has now jumped to a minimum wage of $20. It jumped straight from 16 to 20 overnight. That's rattled a lot of fast food owners. But the second wage is what's called the prevailing wage. So yeah, I've got a 16-year-old who I'm going to hire for the season, and maybe I could get away with paying this 16-year-old $7.25 an hour. That's the federal minimum wage. But if I look around at all the other jobs this 16-year-old could have in our area, maybe everybody else is paying $11.50 an hour. Whatever they're paying, that is the norm. That is the prevailing wage. I have to match that if I'm going to get good talent. If I'm going to have reliable people. Because that person who works for me for a week at $7.25 is probably only going to do it so they can say, I've got a job, but now I'm going to go to this other job that's paying me $11.50 or $12 an hour. And that's the reality. Don't ever underestimate what human beings will do for a gold star or a pat on the back. Recognition and rewards is huge when it comes to retention strategies. Maintaining your staff sometimes is just about recognizing and incentivizing people. Maybe it's a bonus. It doesn't even have to be monetary. It could be an extra day off. It could be, I'm going to buy you lunch. It could be, take an afternoon off and go do whatever you want to. Or I'm going to elevate you to team leader. We're going to give you a new title. We're going to let you start making some decisions around here. Recognition and reward is amazing. I'm 56 years old, and every now and then I just want that gold star, just like Miss Hutchins used to put on my kindergarten papers. Never underestimate it. Professional development opportunities are also huge, especially with seasonal workers, student workers, especially if you've got high school or college age employees and you can help them take advantage of professional development opportunities outside your business. Maybe the Chamber of Commerce is offering something. Maybe the tribe is offering something. Maybe your Tarot office, the Tribal Employment Rights Office, is offering something. Send them, let them get some new training, let them develop some skills. And it could be that they're taking a 3-hour training on sexual harassment. It could be that they're taking some training on leadership skills. Well, they could say, well, boss, I'm not leading anybody right now. No, but you will someday. And we want you to learn some skills. Again, those are huge attractions to people who want to stick around and be part of your team. And again, figure out ways to engage people. We are planning our first ever Sequoia Fund graduate lunch. We have one of our employees' kids graduating from college. One is graduating from high school, and another is graduating from elementary school, getting ready to go to middle school. And we thought, you know what? We've never done this before. These are family. Let's take everybody out to lunch and just have a good time. Things like that go a long way to making people feel special. Scheduling your operations, optimizing your operations is critical. Adjusting operating hours and days to align with seasonal demand patterns. Look, again, if you're already forecasting your cash flow, it's going to make it so much easier to start forecasting your staffing, because you're going to see those peaks and valleys. You're going to know on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I've got to have more people in here. And I've got to have more people in here from, say, 2 o'clock to 7 p.m. than any other time during the day. When you start watching your cash, it's going to inform how you staff your business. You can also create a labor budget for that, so that you'll know how much money you have if things go off the rails and you need to hire some extra people. You'll be able to say, yes, I'm ready for this. You can balance the needs of your business by adding adequate staffing. It's going to help you schedule flexibly with people. Again, if you've got a morning that's really busy and an afternoon that's really busy, but sometime in the middle of the day, it's not all that busy. Do you have a student who just needs to go home and study? Do you need a student who needs to go take an online exam? Do you have somebody who needs to go to a doctor's appointment? If we can build our schedules around people's lives, that's going to go a long way to bringing in the best talent. I've always had a philosophy that you just hire the best people, hire people with some smarts who you can trust, and then trust them to do a great job. I always trust people until I can't. And if you can trust them to do a good job and turn them loose, they're going to do amazing things for you. Get their input. Let them talk to you about important aspects of their job, customers, new products, trends, patterns, things that they see. Just about the time you think you've got it all figured out, people will amaze you by telling you something you didn't know. You need efficient scheduling to cover your labor. You need to make sure that again, when you're watching your cash, you can align your labor with your sales. You're not bringing somebody in to stand around and twiddle their thumbs for 2 hours before things get busy, but you're also not keeping people around for 2 hours after things are not busy anymore. I've never met a high school student who would argue with you if you sent them home early. Now, they're trying to make money to pay off that car or whatever it is that, the new pair of Jordans or whatever it is that they just bought. They're wanting to make money, but if they're scheduled till 9 o'clock at night and it's 7 o'clock and things have just completely died off, maybe the weather's turned, but there are no customers. There's not a high school student in the world who will argue with you if you said, I think I'm going to send you home early. They'll clock out before you can say goodbye. So try to, try to be as flexible as you can with them. Look for inefficiencies in your operating processes. Look for ways that you can streamline your operation so that you don't need as many people. Maybe if you train 2 or 3 people more, you won't need 5 or 6 people. Those 2 or 3 will be able to do some amazing things. Use technology. Are you going to be able to use some technology in your business to even eliminate the need for people or to make their jobs easier? Do you have a work list for everybody? Does everybody know every day when they get to work what their priorities are? What do I need to focus on today? What's the boss going to have me working on today? Or am I just going to wander in and we're going to make it up as we go along? Well, in a seasonal economy, you're not going to have time to do that. You're not going to have time to just make it up as you go along. You're going to have to be proactive in helping them know exactly what to do when they hit the ground running. And finally, always be thinking about continuous improvement. How are you going to establish an attitude, a pervasive attitude within your workforce of continuous improvement? To make sure that people are always thinking about how to do this better, how to do this faster, how to do this cheaper. Once people have that mindset, they can do amazing things for you, especially if they know the clock is ticking. And wow, I've only got until October to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen. Turn them loose, let them do great things. Inventory management. Now, here's why I'm going to pick on our Christmas shop, folks, because any person I've ever talked to who owns a Christmas shop, the day after Christmas, they run straight to the Christmas shows. They go to Atlanta. They go to around here, Charlotte, whatever big city around you has these huge retail shows. That's where they go, and they buy truckloads of stuff. They might have sold a carload of things at Christmas. They're going to buy a truckload. If they sold a truckload, they're going to buy a train load. Whatever they sold, they're going to buy more. And so I'm always kind of fussing at these people about, you need to do a better job because they've got one little shop, but they got 5 warehouses full of stuff that they'll never sell. But buying items for a Christmas shop has almost become an addiction for some of those folks. So we need to tailor our inventory levels to match seasonal demand fluctuations. If you know when you're going to be hit with a lot of customers, that's when you want your inventory. So here's what you do. You talk to your suppliers. You say, look, I want to buy this. Or maybe I don't want to buy this. I want an option to buy this quantity at this price, but I'm not going to let you know. I'm not going to exercise that option until this date. So in other words, you're telling them, I'm going to buy this stuff from you because I'm going to need it in September and October, but I am not going to let you know until the 1st of August. So I don't have to make a January decision. I can make that decision in August. You know that I want this. You can make it faster than I can sell it. So negotiate with your supplier. Are we back? I think I'm out there.
Yep, you're back, Russ.
Good, thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Hey, but Awista, as is tradition, we're going to blame Adobe, right?
Sure are.
So yeah, you can avoid having to stock up on things that you may not sell if you just negotiate with your suppliers a little bit and get them to agree to sell this to you later in the season. Or if you buy it now, maybe they don't ship it to you, so you don't have to warehouse it. I'm going to buy this now. I want this quantity. I want these number of boxes, but I don't want you to ship this until September 15th. So those are the kinds of things that you can let them warehouse it, let them insure it, let them walk around it and keep track of it until it's time for you to have it. You need to look at what major manufacturers would call just-in-time inventory. I'm not going to need this until October 1. I don't want this showing up until September 30. That way, again, you're not having to deal with it. But you also need a little bit of what's called safety stock. Safety stock, or some grocery stores would call it back stock is, we know that at 4th of July, we're going to sell more mayonnaise. We're going to sell more ketchup. We're going to sell more mustard. So we're going to have a little extra of that on the shelf just for 4th of July, just because we know that's a major time of the year. So anything that you know is going to be a hot seller, don't run out of that. Hang on to it. Implementing promotions and discounts to manage inventory turnover. Okay. If you run seasonal promotions, sometimes we run seasonal promotions like at the end of the season, right? Because we want to sell out the t-shirts that we didn't sell because we want to bring in new t-shirts, or we want to bring in a new line of shoes, or toys, or anything like that. That's fine. But you can offer seasonal promotions, discounts, and special offers any time of the year. You can offer seasonal discounts in the off season, especially if you're going to stay open. One thing I would caution you about is training customers to only buy seasonal discounts. We have it's no longer in business, and you'll pretty soon understand why it's no longer in business. But we had an outdoor outfitter in a nearby town that had been in business for about 20 years. Everybody thought they were very successful, but they, for about 19 years, were hanging on by a thread. Because at the end of every season, 4 times a year, they would run a huge sale to move out seasonal merchandise, to bring in the new seasonal merchandise. Well, they trained their customers to only shop during those seasonal sales. They almost never sold anything at full price. Sometimes they would have tourists who would wander in and buy from them, but the locals never bought anything at full price. So take caution. Don't train your customers in a negative way. But if you're going to run seasonal promotions, again, it's a great way to free up cash. Don't let things sit around and gather dust when they could be turned into cash. Clearance sales. Again, the only thing I'm going to caution you here is don't run one of these perpetual clearance sales. We all know the furniture store or the gift shop. I think we've got a couple in Cherokee that have been running the same going out of business sale for the last 30 years. There's always one of those around. Don't be that business that's just trying to capture people with a fire sale sign out front. But yes, it is a great way to, again, liquidate some excess inventory and turn that into cash. You can also look at bundling. If you're not familiar with bundling is a way to get rid of 2 or 3 things when you really just want to sell the one. You want to sell one, but you need to move some of these other things. So a bundle might be, I need to move these boots. I need to get these boots out of here so that I can sell boots. I can sell these boots for $165. Or I can sell these boots for $165 and add 3 pairs of socks to it for $185. So 3 pairs of really nice hiking socks for an extra $20. That's a deal. Now it kind of feels like I'm getting a great deal. All I'm doing is buying more socks. Now this is a term that I didn't coin, but I just learned it the other day, and it's called spaving. Spaving. Spending to save. We're very, very good at it in American culture. We're very good at spaving. But this is one way that you can bundle things, and that $165 pair of boots might not move that fast. But hey, if I'm getting 3 really nice, if I'm getting $40 or $50 worth of socks for an extra $20, I'll buy the whole bundle. So those are the kinds of things that you can do to start looking at managing inventory levels. Leverage your technology. How many of you are using barcode? How many of you are using inventory management software? Something that you can look at. If you're using Square, and if you're not using Square to manage your inventory, close down for a couple of days. Put your entire inventory into Square. If you're selling online, if you're using Shopify, everything in your inventory needs to be in Shopify. Put it all in there because it's really going to help you, and you can run some great data tools through those platforms to tell you, hey, it's time to reorder. You can set a buffer so that when you get down to 3 units, it says reorder. That way you're never running out. So if you know that if you've got a hot seller that is going to be, it'll take me 2 days to sell the last 15 of these, and it takes me 3 days to get it in. Okay, well, when I get to 20, I'm going to go ahead and reorder because I know that by the time the new order gets there, I'm going to be completely out. I've been a long time believer that barcodes are going to be replaced by RFID or radio frequency identification. I've been a long time believer, and I still believe that in my lifetime, we're going to be able to just pick something up, throw it in a bag, walk out, and our credit card is going to be linked to a scanner that's going to say, okay, you bought $100 worth of groceries. We're just going to put that $100 worth of groceries on your credit card. Have a nice day. That's going to take a lot of the need for cashiers and things like that out of the equation. But if there's technology in your business and you're not using it to the fullest extent, whether it's your POS system or whatever, close down for a couple of days. Trust me, it's worth losing a couple of days in sales, especially in the off season, to make sure that you better manage your inventory. All right. So develop targeted marketing campaigns tailored to each season. Well, how do we do that? You can create seasonal themes. I grew up around a toy store. It was actually not a toy store. I thought it was a toy store. It was a tire store. And downstairs in the basement, they had a toy store. And every year they had a Christmas in July sale. So for a long time as a kid, I thought Christmas happened twice a year. Christmas in July sales. So you can create seasonal themes. You can create seasonal product features. You can have a product that look, whether you love it or whether you hate it is debatable. It is a huge seller. The McRib. It is undeniable that the McRib is a huge seller for McDonald's, but they do it seasonally and they bid it goodbye and everybody runs in to buy. In fact, I know a guy who every year he and his father, I don't know him, he works for me. He and his father every year have a contest during the McRib season, who can eat the most McRibs. And they have to bring receipts, literally. This is a guy who is incredibly healthy. He's a health nut. He lifts weights, and he's really smart. So I'm not sure why he eats all these McRibs, but it's just a thing that he and his dad do. But again, this is one of those seasonal product features that you can roll out for a time. It's here only for a time, and then it's gone. And that creates exclusivity, limited time offers, those kinds of things that people just can't get all the time. You can leverage your digital marketing and social media to reach your seasonal customers, especially when people are in contact with you year round, but they only visit you once or twice a year. You can use email marketing, and I'm highly critical of small businesses right now because they're using Gmail to do marketing. That's a big no-no. That'll get you banned. That'll get your marketing taken down. Use an email marketing service like MailChimp, Constant Contact, iContact, something like that, to make sure your emails get into those inboxes. Don't spam people, but email is one of those things that it's called permission marketing. It gives you permission to stay in their inbox year round. And then again, collaborate with your local partners and community events. Just like I said before, talk with other businesses. How can you cross promote? How can you use your technology to talk about what they're offering? How can they put you in their weekly newsletter? How can they advertise for you in their social media? We want to enhance the customer experience. Seasonal businesses have a tremendous opportunity to take care of customers like year-round businesses can't do it and won't do it. Because we have such a short amount of time with our customers, we have the ability to drive loyalty. We can drive word of mouth referrals. And by referrals, I don't mean hope people say nice things about you, because they won't. You have to ask them. Can you give me a phone number, or can you give me an address of 3 people I could send a coupon to, and tell them that, this is courtesy of their friend, whatever your name is. Joy, you're going to give me 3 names. I'm going to send them a coupon to our coffee shop. And I'm going to say, this coupon is because Joy really loved us and hopes that you'll visit us next time you're in the area, that kind of thing. Offer seasonal specials. Again, the McRib, hate to go there, folks. Hate to go there. but it is what it is. Give people those experiences to attract customers, and then solicit that feedback. In a seasonal business, if we're tracking our cash, if we're tracking our labor needs, we can also be tracking people's feedback. If somebody says, I come into this shop every year when I'm here on vacation, bingo. Now we've got a conversation. Let's have that conversation. What brings them back? What do they love? What do they want? What is something that we can do with them that keeps them coming back and bringing their friends? Can we do some events? Can we create some events to bring people in seasonally? So how are we going to diversify things? How are we going to diversify our products, services, so that we're not so reliant on seasonal fluctuations? Well, this is where the hard work comes in. We're going to do some market research. Maybe people don't just come every July. Maybe they show up year round, but they don't show up in our place of business. Okay, how are we going to get them back in here? If I'm a coffee shop, I've probably got them year round. If I'm a sandwich shop, I may have them year round. But if I'm a t-shirt shop, if I'm an attraction, if I am a business that they seem to associate me only with summer, why would they visit me during the fall or the winter? We have to let people know that we're still open. Can we invest in innovation by stay competitive and adapt to these changing dynamics? Can we do some research? Can we start collaborating with others to figure out great ways to attract people to come back in the off season? Can we collaborate with stakeholders? And by stakeholders, I don't just mean other businesses in town. I'm talking about your tribe. I'm talking about your economic development agencies. I'm talking about your chamber of commerce or anybody else to identify and seize these new growth opportunities. Again, in Cherokee, the growth opportunity is not to bring people in here for a week. It's to keep them for one more night. If we can keep them for one more night, that is a dinner, that is a hotel stay, and that is usually a breakfast and some extra spending along the way. So that one more night means huge, huge growth for us. That's what we're looking for here. And that's what you should be looking for in any seasonal economy. Couple things here as we finish up. Regulatory and compliance issues. Where you are, because your business is a seasonal business, you may have some regulatory issues to deal with. You may have to have an extra inspection. You may have to have certain things in your business that allows you to be compliant with building codes year round. You may have to put in an air conditioner if you've never had an air conditioner before. There are just certain things that you want to talk to local officials about, and make sure that if you decide that you're going to be open year round, or if you're going to expand a seasonal business, you want to make sure you're in compliance with those, because you don't want a building inspector to come in and shut you down. You want to make sure that your insurance is covering you year round. If you want to stay open, if you want to, or if you want to go to seasonal, maybe you're at a stage in your life you want to close down for 3 months out of the year. You could go either way. Will your insurance cover you only for the 9 months that you're open? Will they cover you year round? Are there going to be changes in your insurance because of your increased risk? Because the more people who can access you, the increased risk. Technology integration. Technology integration is one of those things that if you have not implemented a point of sale system, if you don't have online booking and reservation system, if you're still trying to do this with a telephone and a spreadsheet or a ledger book, if you don't have inventory management software or customer relationship management software, so that when people come in on a certain day, you know that they're celebrating their anniversary, those are things that you want to consider investing in. And then planning for long-term viability. Folks, the last thing I'm going to say is just sit down, work on that business plan. If you've not done a business plan, or if you've not done a business plan in a number of years, it's time to sit down and take a fresh set of eyes to your business and write that business plan as if you were starting fresh today. Come up with a strategic business plan that's going to help you look at what your business needs. What does your area need? What does your town need? Your tribe need? What does your family need for long-term viability? And from that is going to stem your financial planning, your budgeting, your flexible budgeting, your dynamic budgeting, your marketing trends and forecasts. And the beautiful thing is if you're already open, you're not starting from whole cloth. All of your marketing planning that goes into your business plan is already done. You know where you're going with it. You can look at what kind of talent you need and what kind of talent you need to attract. And finally, again, always be thinking about continuous improvement. If you have a mindset of continuous improvement, things can only get better because you're never going to stand still. Folks, you could have spent the last hour and a half doing almost anything in the world, and I appreciate it, and I'm honored that you spent this time with me. Awista, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Russ. That was a beautiful webinar. For those of you who have any future questions, please feel free to take Russ's email and his phone number. He's willing to answer any questions you have. You can always email him or call. I'm going to go ahead and launch the survey today. Please let him know what you thought about today's webinar. He does read them. Just let him know if you would like to see anything in the future webinars, and he'll make sure to include that. Our next webinar is going to be May 23rd. It is going to be CISA, Priority Telecommunications Services. Learn how you can enhance your emergency communications capability, presented by Kathy O'Kurt. As always, registration is free. It'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Pacific, and 10 a.m. Alaska time. You can access this recording and any of our other recordings on our website at www.nativelearningcenter.com. It is under the Recorded Cathedra tab. You can also check out our upcoming events on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Simplecast. That's where you can find our Hope a Thing, a Native American podcast. As always, thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you once again, Russ. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Awista. Have a